Growing up, as a gamer, one of the most common types of games you would expect to find on sale was that of the licensed game. These would be games based on a film, TV show, book, or other intellectual property. Similar to today, film licenses were one of, if not the most common licensed product, where we would get a tie-in game released, which was very loosely based on the film, and was really seen more as a quick cash-in and a way of promoting the film. These games were very hit and miss, mostly being a big fat miss, and nothing to do with the film, but in name only. However, there have been some movie tie-in games that have managed to buck the trend of crap cash-ins and turn out to be either good or very good games. One of these was RoboCop on the ZX Spectrum, released by Manchester-based Ocean Software in 1988. So with that, welcome to Fistful of Gamepad, I'm Rick, and this is my review of RoboCop on the ZX Spectrum. I first saw RoboCop when I was, debatably, way too young, probably about 8 or 9, thanks to my dad and his VHS copy from Britannia Video Club, of which there was an advert for the game before the film.
Ocean Software presents RoboCop, part man, part machine, all computer game. You've seen the smash movie, played the all-action coin-op, now experience the thrills on your home computer. As RoboCop, you blast through the many levels of the underworld in the pursuit of justice. Scrolling shoot-'em-up action. You've got to be tough, ruthless and lethal. You've got to be RoboCop.
And while the biting social satire Reaganomics went right over my young head, I was nonetheless wowed by the action, mesmerised by the special effects, and mildly traumatised by certain scenes of violence. To this day, RoboCop is still one of my all-time favourite films. The game was developed and released by Ocean Software after securing the rights from Orion Pictures for a reported $10,000, based solely on reading a copy of the script which had been sent to them. No strangers to releasing licensed games, as having recognised brands would guarantee sales, referred to as the Granny Purchase by Gary Bracey, software director of Ocean Software. Ocean would sub-license the rights to Japanese company Data East to develop the arcade game, which Ocean would then port onto the home systems, such as the ZX Spectrum, Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, Commodore Amiga, and Atari ST. My first experience of playing RoboCop was playing it on my ZX Spectrum. At this point, I'd still not even seen the film or played the arcade game. We picked up the disc version for our trusty +3 128K, and it quickly became a staple of my gaming life, and was rarely out of the disc drive. The game came in this big box with the awesome film poster artwork on the front, and part man, part machine, all game, all cop, RoboCop on the sides of the box. On the back of the box, you have a series of big stills from the film, including one of a very beaten up and bloody Clarence Bodiger from the drug warehouse shootout, which is still one of my all-time favourite film shootouts. At the bottom, there are 2 small screenshots from the arcade version, and some even smaller text informing you of this, and if you bought the game brand new, it came with a poster, which took pride of place on my bedroom wall back in the day, a sticker, and some instructions. Based on the arcade game, RoboCop on the Spectrum follows the plot of the film rather faithfully within its limitations, and while lacking the exposition of the arcade game, takes key scenes from the film and bases each of the 9 levels around them. These include the famous alleyway scene, where RoboCop shoots the bad guy through the woman's skirt,
Your move, creep.
the face matching scene, drug lab shootout, and the confrontations with Dick Jones, complete with a rather static Ed 209. It even pays reference to the petrol station scene, complete with little plane geometry student bloke behind the glass, although he does seem to look a bit like Hitler. Gameplay-wise, RoboCop is a 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, which also incorporates FPS elements into a few levels. You control RoboCop and make your way through each of the 9 levels, cleaning up the streets of old Detroit. The game incorporates different gameplay styles, such as the face-matching level, which is a nice little nod to the scene in the film where RoboCop searches the police database. This simple but effective and fun level is basically the matching of 2 faces. Simple enough, I hear you say, and on the surface you'd be right. But throw in a tight time limit which leaves little room for mistakes, very similar face-based choices which can easily catch you out, all wrapped up in a panic-inducing soundtrack ramping up the tension, and you have yourself a fun yet challenging level that brilliantly references the film. One nice little addition though I would like to have seen at the end of this level is to maybe have
Murphy, it's you. Murphy, it's you.
at the end. Controls consist of moving left, right, up, down, and firing in up to 7 different directions, depending on what level you're on. Controls for the most part are responsive, although on levels where you have to shoot enemies below you, there can be times where you need to shoot an enemy in front of you that's ducking, but instead you end up shooting downwards. This can be frustrating as it usually ends up costing you a lot of energy. You can shoot while going up and down stairs and lifts, and while RoboCop may not be the quickest, his turning and shooting are quick enough to dispatch the waves of enemies that will attack you from all sides. Your stock gun is your trusty Beretta Auto 9, and you can collect different ammo types as you proceed through the levels. These include a 3-way shot, a more powerful single shot, and the Cobra assault cannon.
State of the art, bang bang.
You can also collect jars of baby food to increase your health. Unlike in the arcade version, you only have a set amount of ammo, so you need to make your shots count and not be too trigger happy. If you run out of ammo, you are left using your fists, which can make it very difficult to kill enemies as you need to be up close and personal, and they prefer to keep their distance while shooting you. If enemies hit you, contrary to the film where bullets simply bounce off you, in the game this will temporarily stun you and leave you unable to move or shoot for a few seconds, even from enemies who attack you with a flying kick. This can be frustrating if you find yourself in an awkward cycle of being shot from various angles, unable to move, and your energy quickly depleted. You have a heads-up display which shows all your vital info such as energy level, ammo count, lives and score. In typical arcade style, you get 3 lives and then it's game over and back to the title screen. You're not even treated to a game over screen. There's only one difficulty level, which, while challenging, is not impossible with enough practice. The game scrolls silky smooth, and in traditional 80s gaming fashion, there's no tutorial, you're dropped right into the action, and you have to work things out for yourself. Graphically, while certainly not on par with the arcade version, of which in traditional 8-bit micro fashion, screenshots from that version were used on the back of the box, RoboCop looks great on the Spectrum. Graphics are sharp, crisp and detailed, even on relatively small sprites. And small details like being able to shoot the windows out in the FPS levels and having the little petrol station attendant guy present are all nice little nods to the film. Other very simple yet effective graphical touches I did like were the scrolling horizontal lines which opened and closed every level, as these replicated the distinctive RoboCop viewpoint. Similarly, the alleyway and the final levels are great nods to the film, where you adopt RoboCop's point of view and have to aim and ensure you don't shoot the innocent woman or the old man. And any fan of the film who played the alleyway level back in the day couldn't help but try to replicate RoboCop's great shot of taking out the bad guy by shooting through the woman's skirt. In keeping the visuals graphically simple, we're left with detailed graphics and none of the colour bleeding that you'd see in some Spectrum games that used multiple colours. Slick graphical touches from the arcade, like RoboCop taking his gun out of his leg holster and spinning it round his finger at the end of the level, are sadly not present in the Specky version.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Instead, we have RoboCop walking off into the distance or through a doorway. Other nice little graphical touches I liked are when you shoot enemies on higher levels or in windows that they plummet down to the ground, which I'm sure Ocean used the same assets for in Batman the following year. Sound in RoboCop is rather bare bones. We don't have anything like his iconic thumping footsteps. The only real sound within the game we do get is the sound of his Beretta Auto 9, and even that sound is rather limp, and certainly not on par with the thunderous sound it makes in the film. We do get some voice samples on the title screen and at the end of each level, as well as a recap of RoboCop's prime directives at the start of level 1, and if you shoot the woman hostage in the FPS alleyway level. This lack of sound, however, is more than made up for by the music, which is frankly fantastic. From the title screen music, which any child of the 80s who grew up in the UK will recognise from the iconic Ariston advert, to the music that plays throughout every level. This iconic music, rather than looking to mimic Basil Poldoris' iconic score, opts to go for its own futuristic sounding feel, with an overarching drum beat which nicely mimics the sound of RoboCop's pounding footsteps that we didn't get in the game. The music, which was composed by Jonathan Dunn, did end up being licensed to Ariston for that advert. So it's not a case of Ariston using music similar to that of RoboCop on the Spectrum. They used the actual music of RoboCop on the Spectrum. To say that RoboCop on the Spectrum was received well critically and commercially is a bit of an understatement. The game would go on to be the first million-selling Spectrum game in the UK, the best-selling home computer game of 1989, and was number 1 in the sales charts for 18 months. Not 18 weeks, 18 months. And will go on to be one of the best-selling specky games of all time. Magazines will praise the game on its release, with Crash giving it a score of 92% and the crown of Crash Smash in their December 88 issue. Sinclair User would go 2% better and award the game 94% in their January 89 issue. Your Sinclair would score the game 8 out of 10 in their March 89 issue and rank it 94th in their top 100 specky games of all time in October 1991, with readers declaring RoboCop both the 9th and 52nd best Spectrum game of all time in the final issue of Your Sinclair in September 93. CVG made RoboCop their Game of the Month for January 89, awarding it 95%. The Games Machine would score it 81%, 4% more than the C64 version in their February 89 issue. And finally, Ace Magazine would award RoboCop the rather obscure score of 807 in their January 89 issue. Just as RoboCop, the film, made a huge impact on cinema and pop culture in 1987, so too did RoboCop the game to the game industry. Ocean took a film license and produced a game that was more than just a cheap cash-in granny purchase. It showed gamers and developers that with a little thought, consideration of the source material, and a lot of creativity, you can produce a quality game that honours the source material, is still spoken of highly today, and is still fun to play 37 years later. On its release, RoboCop pretty much changed Ocean's fortunes overnight, making them one of the biggest software houses and producers of games at the time. For me, RoboCop was a game that I would spend hours playing back in the day. It's still just as playable today, and now, thanks to the likes of the Spectrum, I can go back, replay it, and relive those great 8-bit micro days. After RoboCop on the Spectrum, it will be 1994 before we would get another RoboCop game that truly captured the spirit of the franchise, with RoboCop vs Terminator on the Mega Drive/Genesis, which was based on Frank Miller's comic series. And while we did get a version released on the SNES, that frankly pales in comparison to the much better Mega Drive version. It would then be a further 29 years until we got another game that captured the feeling of the first RoboCop film, with Teon's RoboCop Rogue City. And while not necessarily being a game that will redefine graphics, storytelling or gameplay, similar to what Teon achieved with Terminator Resistance, for RoboCop fan service, they don't come much better than RoboCop Rogue City. And that brings us to the end of my review of RoboCop on the Spectrum. Please let me know your thoughts and stories of your favourite RoboCop games in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again